everybody sees difficulty in every opportunity, right? We crib about small things. But when you have a great difficulty, can you actually see the opportunity in it? And this is the main theme that I want to drive towards as we go towards through the presentation, right? Thinking about the opportunity in crisis. One of the things that in Gartner last year we focused on was something called winning in the turns. What is a turn? A turn is like the pandemic, right? It is actually a hairpin win, meaning we went in not knowing, and the next day we woke up, it's like, holy moly, right? It's a turn, but it's really like a slingshot, and we never ever expected that. But here's an interesting graphic if you go back. It's basically like anytime there's a crisis, there is a loss in performance, but then the leaders actually break out during the crisis. So the future leaders 5-10 years from now are being formed and forged in this crisis right now. And so my appeal is to let us individually as well as a team think about this as as leaders we break out, right? And this has been proven over and over, and it will be true this turn also. The other one is I want to share is this 4 phases of how to lead in crisis, okay, which we put together, which Gartner's put together. It's basically the phase 1, right? We react and respond, and the performance goes down. We probably are in phase 2 as a community, and then we're going to rebound, right? So some companies are already going to rebound. We're also thinking about opening up the economy, right, as a whole. And then in future, there'll be opportunities that will be accelerated. And that's the curve, is to have that. At an individual level, we have to have the same framework in mind, right? First, we react and respond. We redirect to new realities, the new normal. And then we say, look, I want to rebound to future, so we start working on our skills, and then we of course accelerate the opportunities, the new opportunities that will come by, which is a phase 4. Okay. Now, one of the concepts that is very, very important is complex networks, right? So this picture is actually of the internet of the web. So basically it's a web. That means things are very, very, very well connected. Extremely connected, and we realize that as human beings we have become so connected that the very thing which allowed us to have global trade has begun to hurt us, because the information as well as the particles, let's call the virus a particle, moved in an accelerated place, right? We have the transportation networks and we moved, and that's the idea, is going to be very, very key, right? So the next future is going to actually depend upon people who understand these complex networks. The other idea is called the small world networks, meaning we are closer to each other like never before. And that is why we are at a crisis. And there's a theory called small world networks. If you look at this picture right now, right, you might actually think about this as the epicenter of the problem. Maybe in the center is New York or Washington State in the United States, right? And on the edges, there might be some other. And then very in the far end, there might be Minnesota. And all those connections are how people traveled and how, as hosts of that virus, we also traveled, right? And this is how the topology of every complex system works. When you have a population, this is the topology, and everybody will have to understand what the small world networks are. And that's the science part. Then we'll get to the engineering. One of the things that is so interesting about this epidemic and pandemic is that how quickly things escalated, right? Within weeks, the world isn't a pandemic. It was just weeks. United States, we never thought. We were looking at China and said, oh, this is not going to affect us. And boom, we got on, right? So it's a scale which is different in this world. It's the velocity. Everything is so high, and that is very interesting. And there's a book here by Jeffrey West, which I always admired, And I actually had the opportunity to go back and say, oh my gosh, this is so relevant right now. So I would encourage you to read that up if you can. The other thing is velocity, just the speed in today's world. Everything is accelerated, right? So we have to think about velocity as a capability, right? And it's not just velocity, it's also the acceleration, right? Everything is accelerated. Information, everything is amplified. Speed, transportation, our ability to even comprehend information. We do not have that capability right now, but how do you deal in this acceleration world? The other big concept to think about when you're thinking about acceleration is this idea called black swan. And some of you might know that what is a black swan, right? So black swan is this theory that all swans were white, right? So that was the assumption until someone found a black swan. The whole idea is that assumptions can be so widespread until something happens, and then you have an improbable event, but highly impactful. And this idea has been encapsulated by a person called Nassim Taleb, and he is known for the black swan theory. And it is very, very relevant right now. And he also wrote another book called Anti-Fragile, meaning how can you actually, if you are in disorder, how can you harness the disorder to actually become more resilient? It is very paradoxical, but it's brilliant in its exposition, right? So I would strongly encourage that you look into this black swan theories, because it is the science of the improbable, right? And in other ways to put it is, when you cannot plan, can you prepare? You cannot plan. No one could have planned for this pandemic, but we could have prepared better, right? And as I blogged about this black swan, someone actually reported that it's really not a black swan. In fact, Nassim Taleb was interviewed, and his whole idea was that no, we had signals, we ignored them, right? And I'll get to anomaly detection later, right? Which is going to be another very interesting opportunity. Another concept I wanted to bring to the table to just kind of, contextualize this is something called VUCA. So VUCA is an acronym for volatility, uncertainty, right? Complexity of the systems and ambiguous information. This is becoming the new normal. So if I go back into my research, this idea about VUCA has been increasing quite a bit, but this pandemic really brought this to the fore, right? Because if you think about it, before the pandemic, we were really, really worried about the climate. And suddenly we have forgotten about the climate because we have an immediate problem, which is great. But once we conquer this, let's say get tied over this, we still have very, very big problems. And again, going back to my, when I talk about complex systems, that's what's happening, because everything is connected. So when you think about a butterfly, this whole idea about how can a butterfly create a tornado or tsunami is because the whole world is connected, right? And can cause these kind of problems, which we are living through. And this idea about VUCA is very, very important for business continuity, for technology complexity, and new emerging opportunities. It's going to change the way we're going to live in society, the way we're going to build systems, and how we're going to actually run businesses. Anyway, there's a futurist called Alvin Toffler, right? He talked about what's the 21st century going to need. And it's amazing how prescient he was, because right now, what we are having to do, is we have to learn new skills, acquire new knowledge. We have to unlearn what we already learned, right? And then we have to relearn. So let's talk about learn to learn, right? Meaning this probably is the biggest 21st century skill, because whatever I knew before may not be useful. So I have to keep on learning, right? The continuous learning. The second one is to unlearn what we learned, right? Think about the businesses, how restaurants are getting affected, right? They have to now unlearn how to actually be a restaurant and learn new ways in the future restaurants. It won't be the same, right? We have to unlearn what we are experts at and put on a beginner's mind and relearn. And what is relearning, right? So people probably know is that you might have to relearn some of the things we had forgotten, right? And that's important. Just as a quote, there's a huge demand right now for COBOL programmers. And this is like 40 years old language, right? They don't have enough people to do that. So do we have to relearn? Maybe some programmers will have to do that. It's interesting. The other part is this idea called versatility, right? So there is this conversation that's going on in Gartner and otherwise too. Can we actually become more like Swiss Army knives? Can we actually become T-shaped individuals where we have a broad understanding, right, of the world, but we specialize and specialize over time, and can we turn, right? Can we be agile? Can we be those people who can transform into whatever tool that needs to be? I think that we need to, right? So that's the whole idea about learn to learn and unlearn. We become very versatile. Our systems will also have to be versatile. The other thing is, okay, if you have to learn so fast and keep on learning, what are some theories out there that you can actually learn, right? This idea called deliberate practice is coming up quite a bit. And these are two books that I feel that these are very, very good to kind of set you up, right? So my goal right now in this presentation has been to kind of contextualize, right? And then also like the situation, the challenges, and then what new mental skills we might need to actually succeed, right? So we'll have to learn. And this idea about deliberate practice is actually very interesting. It's a research which has happened over quite a few years, right? But the whole idea is that every skill can be learned, and you can actually get to any skills in a shorter amount of time, but if you actually practice, but not any kind of practice, they call it the deliberate practice. And when you dive deeper, you can actually pick up skills at, not at the absolute grandmaster level, but the 80% level very, very quickly, much quicker than we think. And that is going to be very, very key, right? And because if you ask a question, right, look at the shortage of people out there on the front line. What if, just imagining, what if we had learned to learn so quickly that we could actually, learn new skills so we can be on the front lines? Many of us are sitting here and it's like, oh, how can I help? But because we do not have the skills. But what if we actually figured out a way to learn new skills in very few hours, days, or weeks? Wouldn't that be wonderful, right? And so there's a lot of theories around that. But anyway, the other one I'd like to bring up is this idea called about data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. This is called the DIKW pyramid, okay? And this is another theme, big theme, is that the new opportunities are going to belong to those companies, those individuals who are able to master this pyramid, acquisition of data, process that into information, collect them and organize them into knowledge, and then have actionable insights you can actually act, right? So this idea from going from no, I can't do it, to what do I know or what can I know to do something is what I call the know to know, okay? And it is based on this DIKW pyramid, which is pretty interesting. And if you want to dig in, there's a lot of references there on Wikipedia and Google. Anyway, future is going to belong to digital, right? If you think about it, what has survived right now? Who is hiring? Anybody who is able to continue business using digital technologies is not only surviving, but thriving, right? So if you think about Target has a grocery store. That's probably the highest revenue generating thing right now. Last year, they also bought Shipt. And Shipt is suddenly, what was an outlier has become key, right? And almost all that information is being processed digitally, but serving physically, right? This synergy between physical and digital, physical supply chain, digital supply chain is going to be very, very important. But what is digital, right? Digital has one component of digital is data. Again, going back to the DIKW, we have to master the skills about data. We need to think about data literacy. We need to think about data analytics. We need to think about artificial intelligence, which is machine learning on top of data. We should think about anomaly detection. We should think about prediction, right? And then continuous feedback. But data by itself is not useful in itself. You need software to manipulate the data. So software plus data together is going to be this digital future, okay? So why is, so there's this beautiful article. This was by Mark Henderson, very well-known entrepreneur right now, the inventor of Mozilla browser, which eventually became Chrome and Firefox, okay? So why software is eating the world? And this was penned in Wall Street Journal in 2011. In 2011, he predicted that software is suddenly going to start eating the world, okay? Because he saw that as a fundamental general purpose technology, which is going to change. And it continues to do so. The other one we are seeing, and I'm especially researching, is this idea about rapid application development, right? So you think about telehealth, think about crisis management, apps that had to be put together. Think about the WhatsApp chat app, which we all are using right now to see what are the COVID cases in India, as well as, you know, in Australia, as well as over here, right? That was developed in a matter of days. And similar stories I'm seeing all over the place, right? Microsoft has published many times, ServiceNow, all these big Salesforce, right? All these companies have produced software we can actually rapidly develop. And here's the other thing. Most of these apps were not developed by developers. They were developed by citizens, meaning people who were subject matter experts, right? So this is something we have been researching. I have been researching in Gartner, and I'm amazed at how useful this are. This is actually changes the nature about app development. So anybody who's listening in should learn these technology sets about rapid application development. And offline, I can point anybody who's interested to say, what are these set of platforms that are emerging right now, which have this potential? The other one is cybersecurity. I mean, we all know we are using Zoom, right? So Zoom recently hired security experts because they got dinged because of all the security holes that were happening, right? Well, the joke we have in software, right, at scale is that, you know, scale can be both a blessing and a curse. The curse is that it will amplify all the mistakes you have done, right? And Zoom generates these URL patterns, which are actually, you know, guessable. So once you know the pattern, you can actually write a program to tumble through those, and then you can actually do what is called Zoom bombing, you know? And they become very much smarter, right? All of us, and those will be conquered, no problem. But that's the idea about cybersecurity, right? All these rapid applications were developed, but certainly we have probably exposed thousands of holes. So cybersecurity is emerging as the next wave, where now we need to protect all this digitization that's happening, with all this remote happening, right? So that's a very important and emerging space. And even before the pandemic, there were not enough cybersecurity. The ratio I heard for the jobs available to what the number of cybersecurity professionals in any company or organization was 1:100. So if someone is looking for opportunities, this is a great opportunity right now. The other one opportunity is to actually do anomaly detection. So I referred to that when Nassim Taleb said, no, this is not a black swan, right? Because you actually had signals. Because black swan is really where you had no idea, and you know, it just shows up. But we had signals of how this would work. We chose to ignore it, right? We were slow to act. But the point was anomaly detection, right? Is this different than Ebola? Is this different than the SARS? And there were signals there, and it was so important. We know now as hindsight that we ignored it. So this idea about anomaly detection, it could be machine learning or whatever, there's several techniques, but the capability is going to be very important as an individual, as well as an organization, every business, to say, do I see anomalies and do I need to get bothered by it? And anomaly detection also leads to scenario planning. And this idea called scenario planning, it's a management technique, but it's going to come in forefront. The idea is that when you do scenario planning, you have to think about many realities at the same time. Anything could happen. The only difference is probability, right? But how do you then efficiently maintain that so that when the situation happens, although highly probable, you're more prepared than anybody else, because that's going to be survival. You know, if you're not efficient, you will just die because you're probably preparing for wasting energy on things which may not be useful, may never happen. So this is the situation we are in. So this idea about situational awareness, scenario planning, real-time options are going to be very important based on this idea called anomaly detection. The other one is systems engineering. I talked about complex systems, right? Everything is connected. That means there's a feedback loop. The problem with complex systems is like it's game theory, right? Anytime you want to do something depends upon everybody else what they do, right? So should we open up the economy? Well, it depends upon what happens there. Will social distancing work? Well, I may be okay, but you may not be, you know, doing the protocol, and therefore there's no use, right? We all have to be. That's Ubuntu. And in many ways, that's a connected system. So it's at the engineering level, at the science level, at the topology level, as I talked about, at the you know, society level, even at the systems level. You know, we'll have to start thinking about systems. It's a very hard problem to solve. And most people avoid it because it's just too much, right? But we have to get through it. Together, we have to learn this new knowledge, learn to experiment and publish about what is systems engineering. The other one is modeling, right? If you think about it, everybody has got models. Everybody knows modeling is very important, but modeling is a very rare science and capability. As far as I know, most of the companies do not model. You know, we do not have models in very well done, right? But now we're all looking at model. What might happen? What, you know, what is a peak? Are we flattening the curve? These are all based on models, right? So right now we are all modeling, but modeling as a capability has never existed before. It will become prime. We all have to think about modeling, either qualitatively as well as quantitatively, right? These are new skills. The other thing is MOOCs. MOOCs are massively open colleges, right, or classes. And this has become, which is distance learning, right? It already existed, but it's got accelerated again, right? Because it is necessity. Is it going to become the new normal? No. But is it going to be a balance somewhere? Yes. A huge opportunity there, right? Think about the amount of online learning is a fraction of what we are optimized for. It's all physical learning, right? Take universities, K through 12. So there's a huge opportunity for people to say, how can accelerate that? How can make this happen? Everybody's struggling with this, right? So we need more. So there'll be a lot more investment there. The other then, of course, is machine learning, right? Machine learning is a part of artificial intelligence. And this whole idea is that machines means software machines, right? We're talking about software programs which learn patterns or rules from data. So on the left, you see this prediction machine, right? So it's like, okay, classification, and then boom, boom, boom. And there's one particular technique called deep learning. So whoever's listening in and was inclined really into the technology, deep learning is really emerging as the de facto machine learning, I guess, set of technologies. Okay. Another one is natural language processing. 80%, 90% of human knowledge, you know, communication and information is unstructured, and it's natural language. As humans, we are great at producing knowledge and consuming. It's all in natural language. No one talks in bits and bytes or forms. We hate forms, right? So this new emergence, which can tap into the natural language processing, right? Can you look at human text coming in and can you detect different entities? Can you classify it? Can you figure out like, what the hell is Arun talking about, right? Without asking me, can you infer my emotions and react to it? And this translates into chatbots, voice bots, and you're just at the start. And we are seeing, I'm seeing an acceleration of what that is. And there's so much we can solve with natural language processing. The technologies are there, but we need applications, right? We need people to learn these and really produce these applications which will totally delight and serve. The other one is natural interfaces, right? Why natural interfaces? Because right now, like you, I don't know, at least I am paranoid of touching anything, right? So what if I could actually talk to things, right? So we got, voice is going to take off. Voice is very natural. We are right now talking, right? And I'm showing, right? And I'm gesturing probably, if you can see my thing, right? Like a madman. But I'm conveying a lot of knowledge, right? Or my intent and passion. This is what gestures, imagine now we can control through gestures. I don't know if you people use Google Pixel 4. You know, I'm an outlier in my family. Everybody hates me because I use Google Pixel or Android. Everybody else is on iOS. The reason I like Google Pixel is because I believe Google's capabilities in AI is far surpassing anybody else, right? So they actually have a gesture. I don't know how the hell they do it, but I can control, you know, my music with my hands gestures. And to me, that's a precursor of what's going to happen, right? I can, of course, talk to it. It can speak to me. And then, of course, from a camera, we can do. But with the vision, we have a problem, right? There's privacy issues and things like that. So there's a lot that to be done, but these interfaces are going to become really, really natural, right? The other one, which is from a knowledge standpoint, especially in artificial intelligence, is this emerging trend called knowledge graph networks, okay? So Facebook knows so much about us. What is the technology they have behind the scenes? That's knowledge graph. LinkedIn knows so much about us because they have connected massive amount of information about me to my near folks, and then what do I like and all that. So this idea called knowledge graph networks has been adopted to great opportunity by these big companies. Now technology is evolving where every company can actually do this themselves, right? If you think about Salesforce or their ability to connect things and bring you insights, they have a knowledge graph behind it. They have the technologies they offer you to make it. We need to become, we need to actually now leverage that for every business, right? So knowledge graph networks are growing up. They're very computationally intensive, and therefore technologies are evolving to get you there. And if people are interested, I can talk to them about what are the technologies behind the scenes. The other one is emerging, is this called digital twin. If you think about Uber, right, when you call Uber or Lyft, what happens, right? You are literally, you know, from the moment you're trying to order the Uber, you're saying, okay, how many are available? How long will it take? Then you go to Lyft and see, right? And then once you order, you're looking for when it is coming. Just like Amazon is saying, you know, the last 10 stops, if you want, Arun, you can waste your time tracking us, right? And sometimes we do, because we are suckers for information, right? So this, if you think about, there's a physical movement of goods and people, and then there is this equivalent digital, you know, landscape where you can track things, right? And those are real-time connected, right? This is the concept of digital twin, okay? In supply chain, Internet of Things, and this is a beautiful concept and it's really going off, right? And digital twin in manufacturing and industrial and systems engineering is huge. And we have just started, so huge opportunities there. The other one is supply chain, right? We know how important supply chain is right now. We know how things break down, because in supply chains, usually you'll have bottlenecks, right? And now we know, oh my gosh, never realized this is actually coming from there, or we don't have the capability as United States in that. This is, supply chain is going to be one of the most important things right now post-pandemic, right? And there's huge opportunities about supply chain. And I talked about supply chain not only on the left, which is a physical, right? On the right is a digital supply chain, right? And this will lead into emerging technologies like blockchain. So blockchain was this nascent technology which sat there, everybody was excited about it, right? Of course, Bitcoin's there, but that's not the point. But this whole idea of blockchain, there was a huge wave, and Gartner, we call this a hype cycle, and then just kind of fell down because there was no use case. But now there might be a use case. I want to know, right, the food on my table, where it come from. And if in any ways, if I think it comes from the wet markets or anything near that, I will not buy it. But how do I get assured? right? Will I pay premium if you say, look, Arun, it's going to take time, but I am going to give you the exact food chain, right? Where it originated, what went in there, who touched it, and by the way, I'm going to charge you 25% more. At this moment, I'm willing to pay, right? Who knows? It's a big market or not, but it might actually explode there, right? Robotics. So everything software is great, it's great. I'm a software guy, but I realize that I'm so handicapped when it comes to things which are real. So software is now moving. AI is moving into things, right? These mechanical things are really becoming smart. They're becoming autonomous, right? So you got these kind of different robots. Robots we think like, oh, these are, like the R2D2 C3PO. No, that's just that was just our imagination. The real robots could be elder robots, right? Can you imagine right now, robots which were capable to serve elderly people who are stuck at home, right? The other day I was talking to my daughter who wants to become a mechanical engineer, right? And she, I was showing her some robot, and there's this robot which in prototype which actually loads and unloads a dishwasher. Simple things like that, right? You don't need to have fully, the intelligent autonomous robots, but it's just helpers. And that's going to be exploding right now, right? Right now, there's a lot of investment, let's say, and then and we should see an acceleration. There's huge opportunities there. The other one is autonomous, right? Everybody is thinking about drones right now, right? Why can't we have a drone come and drop off? Wouldn't that be nice? And it's going to accelerate. Huge challenges there, but at the same time, the components exist, right? And that could be in three ways, right? So everybody knows about autonomous cars and the problem. We know about drones. Amazon actually, prototyping. There's so many startups which are now, you can serve through autonomous robots, right? The last one I heard, last week, I attended a webinar for Gartner where IBM showcased that there is a autonomous ship which has been prototyped, right? In September, they're going to launch it, right? Which is going to go across the Atlantic. I think it's from London to New York, right? I don't know, given the pandemic, what happens, but I think it's still on. And it's fully autonomous. There's nobody there, right? And it's going to make the journey from, imagine what could happen, right? So autonomous vehicles, on the road, autonomous in the air, autonomous in the water. We might actually, this is going to be very interesting. A lot of huge implications there, but challenges. And then mixed reality, right? Education we talked about right now. Imagine that we had virtual reality rooms. Like, how do you deal with this COVID-19 epidemics, right? And that immersive learning, which is almost real, but in a virtual environment, is taking off, right? The other thing is to, augmented reality. You point your phone at a thing and it tells you all kinds of information, right? So that is picking up. And then of course the holographic or HoloLens. Microsoft is investing in this something called the HoloLens. And I had the opportunity to actually experience the latest prototype. And it was stunning. Stunning because I could actually see the reality, and then I would see this object and I could actually almost hold it and bring it to me and then play around with it. There was information, data there. There was a thing. It was almost like I had, I was interacting. It was unreal, right? But that would be wonderful, wouldn't it? Because now you're able to bring digital information in a physical environment, and you can actually co-design. Cirque du Soleil apparently, designs many of their sets using virtual reality, right? Or many times they're using the HoloLens, the augmented reality or mixed reality. So this is going to be very huge and huge applications everywhere. Well, I think I'm at the end of the presentation. So,
Arun, yeah. Thank you, Arun. So I think we'll jump into the interactive session, right? So before we get there, so I think we expect that, this is where we encourage, the audience and participants, to unpack the information that you shared with us right now so far. What we have is, just a couple minutes to brief, the members here about a couple of initiatives that we all as citizens have. We have to participate in our own civic duties and community service. I'll actually ask Srini, he's the president of India Association of Minnesota, to walk through the census and the efforts that are going on for COVID relief effort. And then we'll get into the interactive session, and feel free to post your questions or raise your hand, and we can start unpacking and delve deep into the questions and some of the information that Arun shared. Srini, thanks, Srini. Over to you.
Excellent. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yeah. We
Excellent.
see Arun's
Thanks,
LinkedIn.
Babu.
We see Arun's LinkedIn screen.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, so that's my screen. Yep. So Arun, thanks for a very engaging session. Before we get into some of the IAM initiatives, we want to do a quick poll. So bear with me here while I try to bring up the poll. So we are launching a poll here. Please let me know if you can see this on your screen. What are the top 3 challenges, top 2 to 3 challenges on your mind? Are you able to see the poll and respond?
Yeah, Srini, I can choose only one. It's a radio button instead of a checklist.
Okay, Babu?
Yeah.
I can see.
One.
Okay.
The poll is in progress. I can't change it, unfortunately.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Pick. We can bring that
pick the
again.
Top. Certainly. Why don't we do this? Let's pick the top challenge on your mind, given that this is a radio button. So configuration error. And then we'll, in the meantime, in true agile fashion, Babu is going to fix it, and then we are going to do a repoll.
All right.
Okay, we're going to...
yeah, go ahead, Srini. Are we ready to move
yeah,
on to the
Q&A
session?
Hang on, Sri. I'm going to end the poll now. Okay. And sharing the results here. Arun, any comments on the poll results?
Yeah, it maps to us for situations, right? A loss of employment, right? Because we all somehow have got affected, and looks like some people have got affected, right? And I think the next way would be to deconstruct some of the things that I presented, like where the opportunities are, right? Who is hiring, and then to rejigger what are the skills that right now are transferable, and which you can deploy, and then network who is hiring and those kind of things. The other one is basically what are the skills you can rapidly learn and where are they available to get to the new employers or employment situations. The other one is unclear skills to be prepared for the future, right? Which is the phase 2. Now that we are here, what do I need to do next? I think that's what emerges at me. And then what I am not sure, which we should parse into, is economic difficulty to prepare for employment, right? So what are the challenges we should try to ask and say what might be stopping you?
Got it. Thank you. let me, Sri, before we get into the Q&A session, just want to quickly share a couple of IAM initiatives here.
Sure.
Okay, so, there's also a poll here, interactive poll here. So Census 2020, most of you are aware of the fact that there's a massive exercise underway as mandated by our constitution, census. It conducted once every 10 years. And census is an extremely important initiative, particularly in these times. Census counts, obviously everyone in the US needs to be counted, and census counts drive political representation, funding, much needed funding for infrastructure, including public health infrastructure, which is extremely important during pandemics like what's in play right now. And more importantly, for this audience, census counts are used by businesses to start new factories, start new employment offices, so on and so forth. So we urge the entire community to make sure to take census. And we, IAM, along with many partners, have established a network, complete count committee, to make sure everyone is counted. So we're going to ask everyone to take a quick poll here. This is a census poll, and I'm going to launch a question. And the question is, did you take Census 2020? That yes, no, received the letter but haven't. No, did not receive any letter. If folks can quickly respond, that'll be awesome. I know we are running a little short of time here, so we'll just accelerate through this. 34 of 54, 64% voted. Few more seconds here. Please vote. Excellent. I'm going to end the voting here, end the polling here, and I'm going to share the results just very quickly. Happy to note that 89% have taken the census. Awesome. So for those who haven't received a letter or received a letter but haven't had the time to complete the census, we urge everyone who hasn't completed to go to 2020census.gov, and it takes only 5 to 8 minutes to complete the census information. So please go there. You don't need any additional information. You can punch in your residential address and get started and complete submission of information within 5 minutes. Very simple exercise. Okay. Want to take a couple more minutes to quickly talk about IAM Coalition COVID-19 relief effort. So we, about 4 to 5 weeks ago, when the whole COVID-19 crisis started, IAM, with the help of a few community leaders, jumped into action, organized resources, and pulled together leaders from our various partner orgs, community members, volunteer groups, and others, and jump-started a COVID-19 relief effort. If you think about it, IAM platform is very relevant, especially during a time like this, where we can leverage our broad platform and also bring together the leadership across partner organizations to enable collective pooling of resources and rapid dissemination of information, not unlike what we are doing here with this webinar. So what we've done is established a centralized intake and triage process with a helpline, and also kicked off various work groups. You can see here there are about 7 to 8 work groups, including an employment and visa work group. And these work groups are seeded with very passionate volunteers from all across the community, from all our partner organizations. And they have been doing amazingly impactful work. You can see PPE supply, food, the fundraising committee, logistics, well-being, employment and visa, accommodation, and animal shelter. And 200 plus volunteers are involved. So want to make everyone aware of this relief effort. And there's a helpline, like I mentioned. Please spread the word. Anyone who needs any help can send an email or call this number. And there's a intake and triage process, and the request will be routed through the appropriate process. Also, there's a COVID-19 emergency relief fund that has been established with a goal to raise $100,000. And to date, we have raised 21,000 plus. So with the help of the entire community, we can very easily get to that goal, and all of the funds will be leveraged to help our Asian Indian community and also the broader Minnesota community. So please spread the word about the fact that there's a lot of help available, and also about the need to donate and show the altruistic side of our Asian Indian community. I'm done. Sri, all yours.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
Srini.
All right. Thank you,
Thanks,
Srini.
Sri. Yeah.
Thank you, Srini, and thank you, Arun, for sharing your insights and being a coconut tree. So with this, I think we're going to move on to our Q&A session. My name is Sri Kamajal. I'm also the board member of IAM and COVID-19 task force. So I'll be your moderator today for Q&A session. We're going to accept questions in two channels. One is obviously you can raise your hand, and we're going to unmute you. You can ask the question directly, and you can also post your questions in the chat room, and we're going to pick those questions. Those are more impactful, resonate to the topic. All right, with that, I think we're going to open up the floor for folks.
And the protocol is for folks to raise their hand in Zoom, right?
Yep. All right. While we are waiting, I think I have a couple of questions, Arun. What are the top three best practices in professional networking, and how one can effectively practice them in current circumstances?
I think to me, the challenges many times we don't explore who we already know, or we don't explore who we think our inner circle would know about an opportunity, right? So the top three, I think, practices would be to first think about who in your circle people have shifted and might be closer to the opportunity, right? The second one is to really understand what your value proposition is, right? Many times we have not taken the time to understand what we are about, what our strengths are. Have you looked at the recommendations that people have given? Have you had enough recommendations, right? What is you, or what is called 2.0, right? Is like you. And the third one is to just to think about, to be open, right? So what is one paragraph you can write about yourself, and you empower your friends and family as well as your professional network to say, here's something that I can offer, here's what I'm looking for. Could you then forward it to someone else, right? And again, going back to the idea of a small world networks, the reality is that we are closer to the opportunity than we think we are. We just don't know who are those nodes in the middle that will get there. So many times you basically say, look, I'm looking for this. This is what I got, and then send it over. The other one is to just ask for, like, hey, can you help? It's amazing how we actually sometimes are afraid to ask, or we just, for some reason, we don't reach out to a network and say, I need help. And help is a magic word, right? If we really, really ask for help, people will do anything to help in their way.
Thanks, Arun. There's one more question from the chat window. What trends or opportunities are available or need to be aware of for non-software professionals?
Right. That's a difficult question for me right now, right? I can, yeah, to be honest, I don't know what, non-software professionals would, what the opportunities there are, right? But I can tell you that since software is everywhere, people are looking for folks who can help with automation, right? I know so many mechanical engineering folks are struggling for digital automation, right? Or to just get things more digital. So that is a incomplete answer from me. Babu or Sri, you guys have any ideas about non-software?
No, not really. But I think, with I would echo with what you shared. Software is everywhere. I think what I look at is like, one of the slides you shared about is the citizens that is developing the subject matter experts, like, that are automating things. Meaning it's not really a software world as much, right? It's even the non-software, the tools are there, so many that people are using the tools and making applications or when I say applications, it's not the software applications, but automating their applications or their work.
Right.
But I would think that is something to watch for, and the trends would be shifting more like towards that. And I see Hitesh actually is on the call too. Like, it's actually open. I think, people can chime in as well.
Yeah, there's a question in the chat room from Dr. Atkuri. I think this is probably Srini for us, or even Arun can chime in. Any interest to start local or digital chapter for like-minded people, especially post-pandemic?
Yeah, Babu, why don't you take it, Srini? This is right along your thought lines, right?
Yeah, certainly. We'll take that advice into consideration. And there's also, along those lines, there's also another idea to create an IAM professional group on LinkedIn. So we'll combine the two concepts and certainly get the ball rolling. So I think with regards to Dr. Atkuri's question, I think he was specifically referring to a digital chapter. So yeah, we'll go take this back and certainly get the ball rolling there.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Srini. There's another question from Girish J. Considering every field is getting broader with many specialized niche areas, what are your thoughts on career for folks who are entering the workforce, as well as those who are past their midlife? The list of areas you mentioned require at least few years of training experience, if not a professional degree or credentials. Do we need to get back to school every few years, or how do we adapt to learn, unlearn, and relearn cycle?
Yeah, that's a great question. Right. On the face of it, it feels like, you need to get degrees, but I believe that that's getting broken down, right? I mean, in the workplace, what's happening is employers are giving more weightage to practical experience than theoretical, right? When it comes to skills. Let's say you were an artist or even a chef, and these are real world examples, right? They've gone through coding school, right? And got an entry-level web development jobs. Because these coding schools basically gives you literally the skills that you go through within a few weeks, right? So when you asked about few degrees, that's not the case. The other thing is also, there's so many data scientists out there who just picked up and do the number of data scientists in India right now is amazing. And these people have no formal knowledge. And how did they get there? Because of the massive classes. Many of the massive, these MOOCs are they called, right? I touched upon in my presentation. They're opening up free learning. You can actually take these classes and then do. It depends upon the passion, right? So what I would like to emphasize is that break that assumption that it takes so many years to get there. Because the paucity of talent in some of the areas is so acute that if you even show that you can be effective, people will give you a chance, right? Because there's no other talent. So, you know, so there's a whole degree of where, if you want to, let's say, work in the AI lab in Google, yes, it will take a PhD. And if you have a PhD there, they'll probably pay you $500,000, right? But the very, very few, the handful. But do we really need that? No. And this is where, remember the rapid application development? So in the WhatsApp group that we have at IAM, if you join, we can start answering those questions. I can give you specific links that you can go and learn. So let's say you want to do AI, right? Machine learning. Right now, there is a technology called auto machine learning. Meaning if you know what the business problem is, and if you have access to the data and you actually can move that data in the cloud, you can develop models within a day, right? It's very intuitive. In many ways, you don't need to have software skills to do that. And that's the amazing part. When Babu talked about developing applications, many of the application platforms I can point to is you can develop a mobile application, real world business application by using logic, which we all are very logical folks, right? And once you have the platform, you can drag and drop, right? And you can write some rules and everything else in flowchart, and it will generate the application. All that mundane stuff that as a programmer you need to know, boom, goes away, right? And you can learn continuously. So yes, we'll have to continuously learn new skills, but it's not in the form of going to a degreed school. No one has the patience. Business doesn't care. You show the skills, you demonstrate this, and you can get there. And it's amazing how once you apply yourself, you know, even from the start, you can garner those skills very, very quickly in a matter of weeks and months if you apply yourself. I mean, even after the midlife, right? So you have done your career, you're looking for a career change. The amount of opportunities out there are amazing, right? Many times we just don't know. We don't have a roadmap. And that's what I think the networking community here can help. You know, so if there's a specific goal you want, you know, to my best ability, I can draw you a map, which if you apply yourself within a few weeks, you can get there, or months. And then you have a resume which is reflective of the skills that the market needs right now and increases the probability of employment.
Thanks, Arun. You know, on the similar note, I don't think this is a question, but I think suggestion as well as someone complimented you, the mentor-mentee relationship. How can we leverage the mentor-mentee opportunities here? You know, like you being the coconut tree, and how can others be the coconut trees? Right.
Exactly. I mean, I have got equally so many mentors, right? And then same way, and I think it's an exchange of value, right? And many times it is simple guidance. It's almost like someone has seen something and you say, hey, have you thought about this, right? And then let's say it's a mentor-mentee. Let's say I'm the mentor, right? And I believe that mentor-mentee is depends upon where the knowledge is flowing, right? And you can learn from anywhere, right? So, you know, to be very, very humble, right? I learn from everybody. Same thing with everybody learns from everybody. If you think about it, right? So think about a network, dynamic network about value exchange. Any given point of time, so you will give me knowledge because somebody say, oh my gosh, how can you do that? Like, for example, today Srini was like, here's where I put your Google Doc there, and I was struggling for it. Like, it felt like, but I could just reach out and say, hey, can you show me a few skills there? Boom, now I got better, right? And to be very specific, one of the things about what you want is to be almost be reflective and to say, you know, what are you looking for? What are you struggling with? What are the challenges? If you reflect and say, this is my challenge, this is where I want to go. And that reminds me about a guy called Marshall Goldsmith, you know, and if you can Google him, and Marshall Goldsmith is a very well-known mentor for executives. And I had the opportunity at Best Buy when he visited, and we had a group exercise, and it was amazing. And what he said was, instead of 360 feedback, I would like you to think about forward, right? You know, instead of feedback, feed forward. What is very simple technique, right? And it was a great mentor-mentee relationship lesson. He said, look, you know, what I want you guys to do is to say, think about where you want to go, and you go to any random person and say, I want to become a better X, right? So right now, I want to become a better researcher. What is one thing you would say without knowing anything about me that I should do? And you might say, oh, do this, right? And then I say, thank you. That's exactly it. That's it, right? And if you then break down that whole mentor-mentee into this very micro mentor-mentee relationships, that would be great, right? Sometimes you have a phone call, sometimes you have a LinkedIn message, and boom, out there. And I think that many times we also have to have a community of practice, like this whole WhatsApp group is amazing because what I'm looking for probably already exists, right? And I'm watching conversations, and you suddenly realize that, oh, you know, I can learn, and then I have a specific question, right? So this mentor-mentee is basically, it's a very, in my view, depends upon the flow of knowledge and information, and we should all seek to learn and to give, you know, in small little bits.
Very well said, Arun. Seek to learn. Yep.
Shri, just a quick pause. You know, the questions, I think there are questions. I just want to talk about the slide there on the screen. Arun referred to, and Shri, you brought up the question too, is we do have few resources. This is, please consider this as a launchpad, like, you know, resources that are available. One is we do have a WhatsApp group set up, and you are invited to come and join on these on the WhatsApp group. It's shared in the chat window as well. The other one is there is a sign up for the professional network group. You can go and put your email there, and in the next few days, as we start forming groups and interest groups and such, like, you know, you will be included in the communication. That is the email and sign up. Both the resources would be available on the webinar, iamn.org/webinar. And we're also looking for, one of the things that Srini would be running a quick poll is, I think, going back into the mentor and the mentee relationship is, we all can help each other. One person can mentor the other one. To that extent, it's also like, as a starting point here is for us to understand where we can help each other. If you can put some quick, give a quick poll, and also later, like, you know, you can send, you know, through either the email or through the WhatsApp group, we can start connecting people. The poll is out there.
If folks can take the poll quickly. So what can you offer / contribute towards future professional networking sessions? And this is truly a multiple choice question. Okay, we'll end the poll. 18 of 51, only 37% voted. Come on. I'm sure we can cross 50%. All we need is 2 to 3 more folks.
So I think,
Okay,
you know,
I'm
you
going
should
to.
see, I think someone is asking, how do I vote? The
Oh,
poll should have been on the screen. Is it not?
No, I got it.
Yeah, I got it too.
okay. Okay, I will end the poll and share the results. Very encouraging to see that more than 50% said they can help mentor fellow professionals. Falls very much in line with what Arun was talking about, giving back. And another 21% said they can present a future topic. That's great. Can connect prospects with employers, recruiters, or networking groups, can coach or train on a skill. And, you know, yeah, thank you. Lots of, more than half of the participants, or the attendees, I should say, more than half of the attendees offered help. So we'll definitely be asking you all for help as we get the ball rolling on this professional networking series.
All right. So a couple of more questions probably. So I think there's an interesting one. I think a very good question. I think Arun has already answered, but I think it's good to say that for the rest of the group. I don't know if everyone is watching the group chat or not. So this is from Shailaja. There was a lot of focus on women in tech or higher management prior to this pandemic. Do you think would that momentum slow down?
Absolutely not. I mean, it's going to just increase, right?
Okay.
Because everybody is very aware. I mean, there's so many reasons why we need diversity, right? And that's probably the advantage for this community, right? And even for the advanced technologies that are coming up, diversity is becoming very important, because when you have homogeneity, you always have a bottleneck, right? You always have a risk. And not only that, it's very difficult for a particular homogeneous population to think about the realities of the other, right? So especially in machine learning and AI, and comes to ethics and all kinds of things, people are really, really looking for women engineers or women scientists or whatever that is, right? So that, I wouldn't, not only, I think it would be, it would increase, not decrease at all.
All right. Thanks, Arun. There's another question from Josh. Can you give some reference or next steps to rapid app development? There was a mention about.
Yeah, absolutely. There are two ways, right? So one is, you know, so if you're a professional developer, right, as in writing, going back to software development, or let's say Java, C#, Python, whatever that is, right? There are many frameworks which are coming up, which are accelerating your ability to write code faster or write less code. On the other hand, I talked about you know, low-code application platforms where you say citizen development, right? And the platforms are evolving in such a way that you can actually rapidly develop, right? So I'll give you concrete examples. The category right now, both Forrester Research and Gartner, you know, coined that term called low-code application development or multi-experience development platforms. If you just search for that, you'll get a whole bunch of like results. And these, you will see some like Salesforce, some like Mendix, OutSystems, Coney, Temenos, you'll see SAP. The whole idea is that you have gone are those days where these are black boxes, or you're to, you know, they're becoming platforms by themselves, right? So Salesforce actually bought, or ServiceNow bought, both of them bought startups which are natural language processing or AI systems, right? And within that context, you're able to just develop, and the learning curve is usually very small, and then and it's faster, right? And there's also degree programs. So going back to, I think Girish asked that question about, you know, hey, do I need a 2-year degree? No, right? You have to be aware what's available, where the jobs are, then work reverse, like what do I need to do to get there, right? And many of these companies will offer, because they're looking for professionals certified in there, and there are companies waiting to kind of absorb those folks. This is all around the digital. Remember the data and the software and the application, that area. Unfortunately, that's where the need is right now, right? If you can get in there, then you can then go cross-platform. Remember versatility I talked about? Anything you learn in this space, it's cloud computing, rapid application or low-code application platforms. And once you get there, what happens is you have the base new skills, then you can go back into and apply your domain knowledge, right? So someone asks, what about the midlife, mid-career change? Great, because the experience you have, those are all transferable, right? There's so much data and research out there that experience, is something that goes with you. You can't just forget. And when the right opportunity comes in, you can transfer those abstractions to the new area, but you need to have new skills, right? That's what the industry will pay you for. And that's going to be key, a little bit more effort. This is where the relearning comes in. And everybody's opening up, right? If you go to, if you want to learn something, there's so many courses out there. You just need to know the term. You need to know what those connections are about and who will employ. And then you have that whole path. And then actually the problem will become which course do you learn to get there, right? And for that, we can use the online forum to get more details there.
Okay, I think maybe one last question, I would say. Arun, before, a lot of us, we got into this new norm now, the working from home. You're very familiar with this working from home, even some of us we are used to. So what's your take on a work-life balance?
Great question. So it's plus and minus, right? So work-life, I forget the exact quote, but it's a quote from one of the leaders in one of the big companies here. And she was an HR person. She said, what she realizes is that the balance is more nuanced, right? So right now, there's a lot of cultural things that we have to do as a team, but work-life balance, when you're working from home, work permeates more than personal life. Mm-hmm. So the way I see it is that if you are a person, it depends upon the person and it depends on the environment, right? If there are core hours, you'll be there. But at the same time, don't worry about taking time off in the middle of the workday, which we normally think that you would go to an office and work and come back home, and that's when you do the personal work, because many times, the personal work has to interleave. So instead of thinking about batching, think about, maybe interleaving, right? So you start work, then, for a certain time, then you take some time off, you do personal because you got to take care. And that's perfectly okay, right? And because then you can compensate later. So think about, I had a visual in my mind, is basically if you were like, you're doing, in the morning you go to office and you work, and then come back, right? And then you do the personal work and then go back. Instead of that batch system, I wonder if it's better to just interleave, so you expand the horizon and then, interleave personal stuff. However, I do know, for example, my wife, she has nothing, she works exactly how she worked before. It's basically saying early morning, she gets in and then she continues to work through it and then she doesn't touch it, right? For me, it's different. And I think we are all learning to believe that. And with the digital systems these days, it doesn't have to be synchronous. It can be asynchronous. Yeah. And, that's the, pattern. And there's a lot of research out there, which you can dive into about what does that balance mean. And you can contextualize yourself for yourself as well as a team.
And I think, Sri, sorry, I just want to weigh in with one quick comment, almost like flattening the curve and extending it out. That's what it reminded me of when you said, interleave. Previously, you would go to work, just work, 8 hours, come back home. Instead, now it's flattened out and it permeates, interleaves throughout. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I like what Arun said, synchronous to asynchronous. So that's a good way of dealing with it. All right. Thanks, Arun. And Srini, you can take it from here. And thanks, everyone, for engaging conversation, rest of the group.
I'm going to, thank you, Sri. Hey, I just launched a poll. please rate the overall quality of this webinar. We are not going to show the results on the screen, but please do complete the voting, and it's all anonymous. So if you can, I see about 51% voted. Please go ahead, 53% voted, and give us your honest, transparent feedback. This is going to help us obviously shape our future webinars, topics, and modes of engagement. 68% voted. Keep going. 70% voted. We're going to wait for about at least 85% voting. And we do have a couple of quick announcements at the end. If you can, just hang on for a few more minutes. I think we plateaued, 75% voted. So I'm going to end the poll. Okay, excellent. At this point, I am going to, any other comments from anyone, including Arun, before I go to my closing remarks?
Oh, I just wanted to thank you guys. Srini. I mean, you guys are doing so very well and establishing the IAM as a platform. I truly think it's a platform of value exchange, and hopefully the community part, the best practices will transfer into the professional parts, because we need to be together, right? Going back to the Ubuntu, I'm here because of you all, and we're all in this together.
Yes. Thank you very much, Arun Batchu, on behalf of the IAM Coalition and the entire Asian Indian community. You've given us a very insightful and engaging conversation. I personally, like everyone else, wake up in the morning and wonder what life is going to look like in the after Corona AC era, and wonder what I need to do to keep myself relevant. So lots of great tips. Thank you very much. Want to also thank Babu Shimata and Sri Kamojala for the moderation, the overview, and arranging this entire webinar. Thank you to our entire community for taking time out of your schedule to attend, and also focus on self-improvement and career strengthening. Very extremely important given the situation. Thank you to the entire IAM COVID-19 task force. This includes our partner organizations, passionate volunteer groups, and also many community members. Want to remind everyone to continue to donate at iamn.org/donate. Spread the word, help us raise the $100,000, help us provide help to the broader Minnesota community. And last but not the least, stay safe, stay healthy, keep calm, keep learning, keep helping. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
I'm going to end the call.
Yep. Thanks, Srini.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.